Okay, we are live. So sorry we were late. For some reason, we were picking up, Tori was picking up my voice from upstairs. I don't understand. We are literally a floor apart, and somehow my microphone was picking us both up from all the way in the atmosphere, which is weird. But with that being said, today's live we'll be talking about hormones and how they affect lifting and women's progressive overload slash results and all of that fun stuff. And Tori has done a lot of research on this due to her own personal health and fitness journey. Without further ado, though, Tori, tell us a little bit about your backstory. What got you into lifting and all that fun stuff?
Hi, I'm Tori. What got me into lifting was essentially I was just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired all the time. Um, it really didn't have as much to do to weight as it did with the way that I felt internally. And I try to do everything I can to be as proactive in fixing that because I was really sick and tired of the medical field and trying to take pharmaceuticals. Um, in an effort to make myself feel better. And I figured there had to be a different way. So, um, through a lot of trial and error and effort, um, I don't think that I have it 100% nailed down, but I'm a lot further and a lot better now than where I used to be. So I don't know where to start from here, but
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's a pretty good start. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your lifting journey as of yet? So, just a little bit about what you got you into lifting, and then what some stuff you did, like with your powerlifting meets and stuff along those lines.
well, actually, you are kind of what got me into lifting initially. I did start off with a weight goal mostly because I just kind of assumed that weight was why I wasn't feeling as good as I was. And very quickly realized that um, my weight really didn't have anything to do with it. And you got me into wanting to feel strong in the body that I had rather than trying to be the smallest version of myself. Um, you encouraged me to do start powerlifting. And I really liked that because it really did help me feel like the strongest version of myself. And from there, it just kind of progressed into wanting to continue to put on muscle and fuel my body appropriately for strength purposes rather than just pure physique purposes. Um, and recently, I was diagnosed with a thyroid disease called Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism, which means that my thyroid overproduces thyroid hormones and just wreaks absolute havoc on your entire body. And after having been diagnosed with that, I really started to dive deep into how hormones affect how you feel and how your body operates on a daily basis, both inside and outside of the gym. Um, and so I've done a lot of research on that because your thyroid affects your metabolism, which affects everything. Sorry, there's a cat trying to walk on the keyboard. Um, so I guess where the best place to kind of start in this, and like women have a lot of hormones going on. Just men are kind of lucky because they kind of operate on a 24-hour hormonal plane. They're pretty consistent day in and day out. Like they pretty much know what to expect every single day. Women, as most women will know, you're going to feel vastly different every week and almost every day. So we run on a 24-hour hormone cycle as well as a 28 to 31 day hormone cycle, which is your menstrual cycle. Um, and that can play a huge effect on the progress that you make in the gym, how you feel both in and out of the gym, and how you need to nourish your body to reach the goals that you want. So,
That's absolutely awesome. I think this is something that a lot of people feel but don't necessarily understand quite often. I have worked with many females throughout my career as a personal trainer, and I know Mike Cucino, our powerlifting coach, has as well. And it's kind of crazy how much this affects things. I didn't even realize how much it affects things until you started telling me more about it. In fact, I didn't know a lot of things until you started telling me more about it. So, if you want, do you want to go ahead and start showing the beautiful slideshow that you made for us and giving us some of the cool things?
Yeah. First, I want to kind of talk about your metabolism and how that kind of affects your hormone balancing as well. Because I have noticed, and I'm sure that you've noticed as well as Mike, women tend to be chronic undereaters, which is by far one of the worst things you can do for your hormones is to underfuel your body. And unfortunately, because of diet culture and the crazy like threshold that it's had on women across centuries to be the smallest, thinnest version of ourselves, we've been gaslit into eating less is better. You got to eat less in order to lose weight. Like the only way you're going to see progress is to eat 1,200 calories or whatever, which is absolutely obscene because 1,200 calories is a toddler's like nutritional needs, not a grown human woman who has a lot going on throughout the month. Um, which leads me into your menstrual cycle. And that's going to affect how your metabolism operates as well. And which means that your nutritional needs are going to vary throughout the month. So, chronic undereating, um, it mostly, as far as everybody else is concerned, it's going to have a huge effect on your cortisol levels, which I'll get into that as well. But cortisol is like that's the bad hormone. It's a stress hormone. It's basically what makes everybody like hold on to fat, and it can cause adrenal fatigue, and it can just wreak havoc on your goals. So I want to talk about first, what are sex hormones and how they're going to affect your gains. I made this little slideshow so that everybody can kind of reference back to this as needed. It's not like or it's not a complete slideshow. I can always go back and add to it depending on who has questions about what more specifically. But this is just kind of a quick rundown um, of what hormones are going on in your body, what you can expect throughout your cycle, and how you can train to your goals and optimize your progress, essentially. So, women have three primary sex hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and then we have a little bit of testosterone. Most people know estrogen. That's the big high ticket hormone that we all have, that's the most well known and high valued. That's the one that makes us feel really, really good, basically. These hormones are responsible for all kinds of stuff, from regulation of your reproductive system and your sexual development to managing your metabolism, also your appetite, which falls into that, your sleep quality, your bone and muscle growth, and your overall general health, right? Um, and then, as far as your cycle goes, these hormones are going to fluctuate throughout the span of your 4 week cycle, whether you run a 28-day cycle or a 31-day cycle. Every woman is a little bit different, especially if you don't have anything going on like PCOS or endometriosis, which that's a whole another playing field as well, which we won't get into right now. But let's just all assume that we've got a normal cycle, right? Your cycle is going to run in 4 phases. You've got your menstrual cycle. We're going to call that day one of your cycle. And that can run optimally between 5 and 7 days, unless you've got some other crazy stuff going on. Your follicular phase actually also begins during day one of your menstrual cycle, and that can run up to 10 to 20 days. So that begins during your menstrual cycle and will taper off through until your ovulatory phase, which that is the phase in which you can all get pregnant in. If you did not know, you can only get pregnant within about a 6 to 9 day window, depending on how long your ovulatory window is. Um, and that's essentially when an egg is going to be dropped. So that's the window in which you can get pregnant. Your follicular phase will go into beginning of your ovulatory phase and then tapers off. And then once you're done ovulating, once that egg has dropped, that egg is only viable for about 12 to 24 hours. And then if that egg is not fertilized, you will go into your luteal phase. And your luteal phase is going to last until your menstrual phase. So that can also be anywhere between 7 to 11 days, give or take. Um, so how these hormones work throughout the phases is that your hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone, are going to be at their absolute lowest during day one of your menstrual cycle. When you feel kind of yucky, things are, you're going to feel weak, you're going to feel pretty irritable, somber, fatigued. Um, but through your menstrual phase, your hormones are going to start climbing back up. Your estrogen is going to become on the rise. That's what starts your follicular phase is your estrogen is climbing. You're going to feel best during your follicular and your ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase, your estrogen is at its absolute peak. You're going to feel strong. You're going to feel sexy. Everything's going to be great. Men, watch out because your lady's going to be on to you. And then
It's my favorite phase.
it is most men's favorite phase, whether they realize it or not. You're going to probably notice, oh man, my lady's really into me for like this week and a half. That's why, because they feel good and their body is basically telling them, hey, we want a baby. Um, so you're going to have your highest energy and best mood levels and strength levels during your follicular and your ovulatory phase. So basically, we've got 2 good weeks out of every month that we can make some really solid progress in. And then you've got your luteal phase, and that's the phase that everybody hates because you're going to be cranky, you're going to be irritable. You're going to probably experience some of those premenstrual symptoms, which is what PMS is, because this is your hormones are starting to now kind of come back down until you go into your menstrual phase. So that's kind of the long and short of things. And understanding, first of all, tracking your cycle is going to help you understand these phases a lot simpler. And it's going to also help you to understand like why you feel the way that you do, especially in the gym. If you've ever noticed, oh man, 1 week you're feeling on top of the world, you're feeling really strong, like your numbers are all going up, you've got high energy, and then the next week you feel like crap, everything feels like a fat ton of bricks, like the weights that were super light the last week or you can't hardly pick them up this week. This is exactly why, and it's something that you shouldn't beat yourself up for. um it's also worthy to note that your hormones are going to change over time, through your life cycle, depending on, if you want to become pregnant, your hormones are going to change through pregnancy and then through postpartum. And then if you choose to breastfeed, or even if you don't choose to breastfeed, like that phase is still going to happen. And then through menopause, these cycles and these hormone fluctuations are going to change throughout your life. So being aware of where you are in your life, what your goals are as far as family goes, having an understanding of all of this can really help you feel a lot less frustrated in not only the progress in your goals, but also the way that you feel at home and the way that you interact with the people around you. Aiming for hormonal balance is not just what's healthy for your body, but it's also what's healthy for your mind, mentally and emotionally as well, so that you're not constantly in this state of frustration between, well, why was I okay this week and why am I not okay, the next week. Your hormones are playing a huge role in this. And it's important to keep track of this so that you can anticipate when you're going to start feeling poorly and when you're going to start feeling really good. So that way you can kind of give your family a heads up. Josh is well aware of this. I tell him about 4 days out, before I start my period. Hey, we're 4 days out. I'm going to be a little bit cranky. You should probably mind your P's and Q's a little bit. Not that he does, but at least I give him the opportunity to change his behavior a little bit to make our lives a little bit easier. But I also try to recognize how I'm feeling and not take it out on him and not lash out and not get my panties in a wad because he said some off the wall thing that my brain is suddenly going to throw a tantrum about. So,
I am not very good at minding my P's and Q's during those times. I
it,
screw up quite a bit.
right. But again, it's something that I remind him of every single month in hopes that eventually he'll learn, oh man, it's getting to be that time. I should probably do things that help her feel a little bit better so that my life isn't a little bit harder. We'll get
I'll
there, I'm sure.
I'll learn eventually.
Eventually.
Crystal says it's very helpful, by the way.
Oh, this is awesome. I really appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people in the gym have heard me spout this craziness constantly because this is pretty much all that I talk about, and I'm very open about it. Um,
Which I'm glad. We need this to be more regulated and more like socially acceptable to talk about. So I am happy that you do talk about this so often.
yeah, and I have no couth when it comes to that stuff. I like to normalize normal bodies, and unfortunately, because this is the normalcy that women have to experience every single month, it should be talked about more and it should be more welcomed and more understood, not just on a women's side, but the men in our lives need to understand that this is out of our control for the most part. Like, this is just something that they have to deal with just as much as we want to have to deal with it. Believe me, we don't necessarily want to have to deal with it any more than they do. So, understanding these things is going to help everybody, you physically, mentally, and emotionally, and then again, those around you, so that not everybody's going to be super upset for 2 weeks out of every month. And then, like, 2 weeks out of the other month, or the other 2 weeks out of the month, everybody's like, oh, everything's great again. There's reasons behind it. So, how does food, hormone, and strength training all kind of play a role? Well, we've got estrogen and testosterone in our bodies, and these are the primary hormones that affect our bone and muscle growth and health. Strength training, as well as weightlifting or muscle growth, which is also called hypertrophy, has been shown to help balance and regulate these hormones. Um, Nutritional intake is also super imperative to hormone regulation and balancing, as well as that muscle growth and stabilizing your metabolism. So, before, when I was talking about um, chronically under eating is one of the worst things that you can do for your hormones. It's also one of the worst things that you can do for muscle growth. And I don't know how many times I've heard women say, I want to look toned, but I don't want to lift weights. Well, unfortunately, that's a contradictive statement. If you want to look toned, there has to be muscle underneath in order for that toned look to, otherwise, you're just going to be skinny fat. Like, you can't have one without the other. But you also can't have muscle growth if you're not fueling your body appropriately. You can do a lot more at maintenance calories than a lot of people think that you can. You have significant body recomposition through maintenance calories, but more times than not, it's going to take a lot more food than most women realize in order to put on muscle. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to build that muscle for women. Unlike men, men's got a lot more testosterone on their side. They have it really easy. Like, they can go to the gym 6 days a week and they can feel really good and they can eat all the food and they can put on 10 pounds of muscle in a year. Women can't do that. You're really lucky if you're going to put on 2 to 3 pounds of lean muscle in a year in a solid surplus. Tips for a breastfeeding mama who wants to tone, lean my body, and grow glutes overall muscle. Food, 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 food. I'm not pregnant, never been pregnant, will not breastfeed. But I do know that breastfeeding requires a lot of energy. Menstruating requires a lot of energy, which is something I'll get into as well. But basically, feed your body, girlfriend. Like, food is your best friend, it is not your enemy. You need to feed your body and lift heavy weights. You need to implement progressive overloads. That's doing a little bit more next week than you did this week. Um,
And with breastfeeding too, I know by no means am I an expert. Tori knows a lot more about the hormone side of things. But when it comes to breastfeeding and it comes to any kind of fitness goals, do not focus on fat loss or weight loss while breastfeeding. You want to focus on muscle gain, because breastfeeding you're going to be burning so many calories, and the like delicate balance of getting enough nutrients to be able to provide food to your baby and be able to lose weight or fat is very challenging. So your best bet is to try to put on as much muscle as possible, because you're actually in a very anabolic state whenever you're breastfeeding. So you want to try to put on as much muscle as possible. So that way, whenever you're not breastfeeding anymore, you can start cutting back on the calories a little bit. You can actually shred fat easier because you have
mhm.
more muscle mass, and you're at no detriment of minimizing milk production for your baby. So definitely focus on muscle gain during this phase than I would
So that's what I'm talking about as far as like your body is burning a lot of energy right now while breastfeeding. That's what he's talking about. It's taking a lot of calories for your body to produce that milk and to feed your baby, as well as feed your own body and its needs. Muscle takes a lot of calories in order to maintain. So that's why it takes a lot of calories to build muscle. That's why you're able to eat more when you have more muscle mass, is because your body is burning more calories trying to hold on to that muscle. And you're going to naturally lose more body fat with the more muscle mass that you have. Um, so you're going to be able to eat a heck of a lot more than you think that you should be able to. Josh is very quiet.
Really? Turn
He's
me
also
up then.
not talking a lot.
I don't know if I'm as quiet now. I just turned my mic up quite a bit, so hopefully that made me louder for you guys. So anyway, continue on,
Okay.
Tori. Thank you for letting me
So
trash talk.
basically, in essence, you need to eat to grow. It's going to take a lot more food than you think in order to put on a lot of muscle. Nothing is more detrimental to your health and hormones as under eating. Still a little bit quiet. Um, and under eating is going to slow your metabolism and is going to hinder muscle growth. So, more muscle equals faster metabolism, which means you can eat more while maintaining muscle mass, but more food plus strength training is going to equal more muscle.
Well, Tori's the one we need to hear anyway, so that's the important thing. So I'll work on my levels later.
So, as far as under eating goes, I can do another thing on nutritional intake another time, and how to make sure that you're eating enough for your body and for your goals. Um, as far as being a woman goes, because we're going to have different nutritional needs than men do because we've got a lot more going on. But basically, during your menstrual cycle, honor your cravings. If you want that piece of cake, eat the piece of cake. Your body is doing more work while it's shedding that uterine lining, and it's going to require a little bit more food. If you undereat during this time, you are far more likely to spike your cortisol levels, and you're not going to sleep as well, and you're going to hold on to more fat because you're not giving your body what it needs. And so it thinks, oh, okay, well, that means I have to store all of this extra fat. So by giving your body enough food, it's going to feel safe enough to shed excess fat, basically calories, energy that it doesn't need, that it's holding on to. So don't be afraid to eat a little bit more if you're a little bit more hungry during your late luteal phase, preparing for your cycle. And then during your cycle, you might not feel as hungry during your like ovulatory and your follicular phase. Your metabolism and your appetite is going to stabilize a little bit more. But that's why we all tend to feel a little bit more hungry, which can lead to us feeling a little bit more cranky as well. But definitely don't restrict yourself during this time. Carbs are not the devil. Like, eat your carbs, have your fats, make sure that you get enough protein in. Having enough protein is also vital. It's going to help you stay more satiated. And it's going to help you build that muscle and hold on to the muscle mass that you do have, right? So, as far as training with your cycle rather than against it, knowing where you are in those phases is going to help you feel better in your workouts and optimize your strength and muscle gaining goals during those times. During your menstrual cycle, like I said, your hormones are going to be low. You're not going to be feeling your best. You're going to be feeling a little weak, a little tired. Rest. It is okay. Take the time that you need. You need to be doing like low impact, like moderate to low intensity training. Definitely no HIIT classes, no running, no pulse, nothing that's like super high intensity for your body, because that's again going to spike those cortisol levels. So taking an appropriate amount of rest during that time is actually going to be so much better for your body. Do some walking. If you feel like you need to move your body, go on a walk. That's going to be just enough. If you want to do some strength training, that's fine. Lift your weights, but maybe, knock down the weight a little bit and do a little bit higher ranges. That's going to be okay too. Same thing in your late luteal phase. As those hormones start to decrease, you're going to start to feel weaker, more irritable. It's okay to drop things down a little bit. You can take it down a notch and you're still going to reach your goals. The time to do your higher impact, more energizing, like if you want to do your HIIT classes and that's kind of stuff that you really enjoy doing, do it during your follicular, your late follicular, and your ovulatory phase. Do it post period, when your hormones are starting to rise, your estrogen is higher. You're going to be feeling really good. You're going to be feeling energized. That's the time to do those higher impact workouts if that's the kind of thing that you fancy. I don't like doing it. I don't like cardio. I don't like that kind of stuff. That's why I like weightlifting. I find that it's more bang for your buck. I can do that for an hour and a half, and that's it. Because when you lift weights, you're going to burn calories once you're done as your body works to repair those muscles, right? So when you're doing cardio and stuff, you only burn those amount of calories until you're done doing cardio, and then that's just kind of it. Now, using cardio as a supplementary, that's fine too, but knowing when to do it is going to be better for your body during those particular two phases as opposed to doing them during your menstrual cycle or your late luteal phase. It's just not necessary, and it's not going to hinder any muscle growth or fat loss goals if you don't do your cardio. Like, it's okay, I promise. It's actually probably better for weightlifters to do less cardio than it is to do more cardio. As we've always said, if you're a runner, you should lift weights. If you're a weightlifter, you shouldn't run. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. But for women, this is significantly more important because in balancing your hormones, you want to take control of those cortisol levels, and knowing when to do that kind of stuff throughout your phases is going to make you a lot less frustrated in that progress. So, um,
Do you have
yeah.
any tips on how to track this so you know where you're at in your cycle and
Oh,
what to do?
apps. They have so many apps out there. I actually use an app called Ovia. I've been using it for a couple of years. I decided to start seriously tracking my cycle. I was on birth control for a really long time, um, which I do not recommend now that I've gotten myself off of it. Birth control really messes you up. It suppresses your body's natural ability to produce these hormones, as well as putting synthetic hormones into your body rather than just letting your body figure it out. Now, if you've got other stuff going on, like I said, endometriosis and PCOS, you know, having some hormonal help might be necessary, but I would do as much as you can um, without it. You can prevent pregnancy just as well tracking your cycle as you can taking hormonal birth control. And that was something that I learned when I decided to stop taking birth control, was that, like I said, that ovulatory window, that's the only window that you can get pregnant in generally, unless again there's some crazy ectopic stuff that's going on. But typically, not to get into the nitty gritty, but sperm can only live for about 4 to 5 days. But that egg only is viable for between 12 and 24 hours after it's dropped, right? So if you can figure out, you can prevent pregnancy by saying, okay, my ovulatory window starts here. If you can figure out the day that you ovulate, you can anticipate, okay, well, we're going to not have any fun from this day until the day that I ovulate, and then the day after. And then you're good to go. So, but understanding when your cycle starts and stops, say if you're regular, if you're super regular, tracking that on an app, it's going to recognize trends in the future. So it'll be able to anticipate. Now, it's going to take a couple of months for it to figure out those trends, right? But eventually it's going to say, okay, well, you generally have a 28-day cycle. So that means you can anticipate your ovulatory window being here, and then you can say on your app, okay, well, this is the day that I've ovulated, so it's going to track that every month as well. And then you can say, okay, well, from day 1 of cycle to day 5 of cycle, you've already started your follicular phase. That's when you've ended your period. Hormones are going to come on the rise. You're knowing, okay, well, now I'm in my follicular phase until you hit your ovulatory phase. And then you say, okay, well, now I've ovulated. So now that's going to start my luteal phase, given that you've not gotten pregnant or whatever. But you can also use this if you need help getting pregnant as well. So balancing your hormones can play for both ends. So that way you can prevent pregnancy just as well as you can help get pregnant if you want to be. I just didn't want to be. So that's why I tracked it very religiously. To make sure that we didn't have any accidents, on top of just generally wanting my hormone health to be as balanced as possible. And this was all happening before I even found out about the Graves, which is a whole totally different scenario that I'm still very much learning about. So, are there any other questions? Like I said, I can absolutely build on this slideshow. We'll have it posted so that you guys have access to this information. I'll probably post it later on in the week because there are a couple things that I want to add to it, and I want to add some resources so that you guys can go and look into this stuff on your own as well. I highly recommend doing your own research. Everybody's body is going to be different. Um, so figuring out what works best for your body, I can't tell you that. I can tell what's generally going to work better for your body, which is going to be more food and strength training as a woman, than doing excessive cardio, 900 times a week. I'm like, if you lift weights 3 to 4 times a week and you eat plenty of food, you're going to see your goals. And if your goals are to tone and lose body fat, muscle, 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 got to eat to grow. So no more chronic undereating. Food is your friend, not your enemy. And you don't have to be overly restrictive in order to reach your goals anyway. We live by the 80-20 rule. If you eat for your goals 80% of the times, which are going to be mostly whole foods, they're going to have a lot of micronutrients in them, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals. Um, on losing weight with PCOS. So I was actually also diagnosed with PCOS and managed to lose roughly between 30 and 40 pounds. And this was while I was still on birth control, which actually makes it inherently harder to lose weight while having PCOS. But strength training, building muscle, like that is what saved me, was putting on muscle, eating enough food. I ate in a very slight deficit. I mean, I probably still ate probably closer to 2,000 calories while lifting weights 3 to 4 times a week. And within, 5, 6 months, got down to the goal weight that I thought I wanted to be at. And in doing that is, like I said, building muscle is going to help balance and regulate your hormones. I've actually kind of put myself into a somewhat of a remission with my PCOS. In doing this, I had a lot less symptoms. I was able to regain my period back within a month and a half, eating at maintenance calories, which was for me, about 2,500 calories. Was able to restore my period and balance my hormones back out naturally with just food and weightlifting. Little cardio. Actually, Josh told me when I first started, you don't have to do cardio. And I thought he was lying to me. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought that, of course, being new to fitness, that was the pinnacle of weight loss, as we all thought. You eat less, you run all the time, you gotta be miserable, and you don't. I mean, I stopped running, and I ate more food, and I ate a lot of whole foods, and that was all that it took, really. It is really that simple. Eat a lot of whole foods.
When
Yeah.
a woman wins at fitness is the moment they stop caring about weight loss and start caring about the numbers they're lifting. The moment you make that mind shift and you start focusing on how much weight you can lift, that's when you'll really start seeing weight. Like, we have an entire program at Dedicated. We call it a weight loss or a fat loss program. But honestly, it's just a fun way to get women to realize they like weightlifting. And once they are hooked on trying to lift heavier numbers, that's when I know you'll start losing body fat, because that's when results start happening.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I made that mind shift change to, okay, I no longer have a body weight goal, but I have strength goals. Instead, I want to be the strongest version of myself rather than the smallest version of myself. That's when my progress really blew up. Now I'm considered to be myself as a muscle mommy, as the internet might say. And, although I still have some struggles that are more or less out of my control, I feel the best that I ever have. And that's after having gone from feeling like a dumpster fire every single day to now being able to anticipate how I'm going to feel and how to structure my workouts according to where I'm at in my cycle. And I don't beat myself up over it anymore. Like, I used to get really frustrated with, oh, I'm stronger, this week, and the next week, I'm not as strong. I was like, I couldn't figure out why. And until I started taking a deeper look at how my hormones affect the way that I feel on a daily and weekly basis, it allowed me to give myself a lot more grace. Um, which is really what I think a lot of women should do anyway. We've got a lot of stuff that goes on with our bodies all the time. Um, and it's not something that we should feel bad about, and we should play to our advantages, and we're going to be more advantageous 2 weeks out of the month and less advantageous 2 weeks out of every month. And unfortunately, that's just our reality. So
I do have one more question unless someone else wants to pop one in the chat here. Am I still really quiet, by the way? For anyone in the chat. But I know you touched on this a little bit. So someone gets the app, they start tracking their menstrual cycle and where they're at. How would you suggest, and we can do a whole nother thing on this, just give me the Clip Notes version. How would you suggest they structure their weightlifting according to their cycle? So would you suggest like going heavier than bandana and tapering off as you go, or what direction would you suggest this being?
yeah, so like I said, those 2 weeks out of the month that you're going to feel really good, that your estrogen is higher, your testosterone's a little bit more elevated. During your late follicular phase and your ovulatory phase, those are the weeks to really push your heavy weightlifting. Those are the weeks you want to, if you want to max out, if you want to shoot for PRs, if you really just want to blow things out of the water, those are the 2 weeks to do it. So knowing when those 2 weeks are happening, you know you're going to feel really good, you're going to feel strong. Those are the 2 weeks to really get after it. Push yourself on the heavy weights. That's when you're going to have an easier time um, implementing your progressive overload. And then understanding as you taper into your luteal phase and you start feeling a little bit weaker, just understanding every day how your body feels. Um, so we go by a thing called RPE, which is rate of perceived effort. For women, that changes a lot more frequently than it does for men because of our central nervous system is going to be affected by all of this stuff too. So your central nervous system is going to take a little bit longer to recover than your skeletal muscle system. So your muscles are going to repair within 24 to 48 hours, where your central nervous systems can take between 7 and 10 days of heavy lifting. So you want to lift really heavy during the days when your central nervous system is not as inflamed, your hormones are more stabilized, they're at their highest, you feel your best. That's the time to do your heavy lifting and really get after it. Into your late luteal phase, it's okay to start tapering off. You say, oh, I feel kind of crummy today. Um, it's okay to take it a little bit light. Say, okay, I'm not as strong this week, so I'm gonna maybe take the weights back down a little bit. Um, Say the week before during your ovulatory phase, you're bench pressing 30s. That's awesome, great, and you can do it for 4 sets of 8, and you feel great. And then the next week, when you're in your late luteal phase, say you're having a really hard time pushing those 30s for a set of 8. It's okay to drop it down to 25s or 20s, and then do those for as many as you can, and just take that for what it is. Like, you're not going to hinder your progressive overload in doing that. And then, like I said, once you get into your menstrual cycle, it's okay to take more rest days if you need it. Don't beat yourself up. Like, you're going to feel really bad during those days. Your body's going through a lot. You don't need to, if you want to take the whole week off of the gym and just do some walking, that's okay. It really is. It's not going to hinder your progressive overload. It's not going to hinder, you're not just going to magically lose all of that muscle that you've been working really hard to put on. That's not how that works. Um, Taking that rest during that time is actually going to be far more beneficial for your metabolism, for your central nervous system, for your cortisol levels, and all of those things that affect muscle growth and building by taking the necessary rest. So, just understanding and anticipating how you're going to feel is going to help you structure your workouts in that way. Do whatever movement makes you feel good. In essence, do what makes your body feel good. Don't push it if you don't have to. If you don't feel good, don't force your body to do stuff that's going to make it feel bad. That's going to hinder your progress far more than anything else. So track your periods if you can, but otherwise, just kind of pay attention how you feel every day and every week. Because every day those hormonal fluctuations are going to change. You're going to have a little bit more estrogen. It's going to peak throughout the week until you hit your ovulatory phase, and then it's at its highest, and then it's going to sprinkle back down. So, like, every day is going to be a little bit different for us women. And that's okay. And it's normal and it's natural. Don't beat yourself up over it. Um, give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, and rest when you need it. There's no reason for you to be working out 6 to 7 days out of every week and under eating and making yourself absolutely miserable. You don't have to do it to meet your goals. And I'm living proof of that. And I did all the trial and error in hopes that I can help others not have to go through those similar frustrations that I had to go through. Um, yeah. So if there are any other questions, you're also welcome to send me a personal message on Facebook, and I will send you the resources or try to answer things as best as I can. Like I said, I will get this slideshow together a little bit more, and we'll have that posted by the end of the week. And I really hope that this was helpful to at least some. But go eat your food and go lift your weights.
I think that is the best send off I can possibly hear. Also, I found out why I was really quiet, so that's really useful. But with that being said, I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today, and I
Absolutely.
hope that you all got something out of this. I know Tori's taught me a lot, and I can't wait to spread that knowledge to a lot of my clients. You're always welcome to reach out to me to get a hold of her, or you can find her in the comment I will be posting below. And I just want to say thank you guys so much, and we'll definitely be here to help out with any other future questions in the future. Until next time, stay dedicated.